Stacey. Now 909 on the courtroom clock. Record should reflect that all 12 jurors are present in the courtroom, as well as all 5 alternates. As president of counsel, as our counsel for the state of Ohio, we're beginning our 7th day of the evidentiary trial in this state of Ohio versus Shawn Grate, 16 CRI 187. We're still in the process of the state's case in chief being presented, and we're ready for your next witness, Mr. Janelle.
State call Sarah Fairchild.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you give this matter to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Show your name, please.
Sarah Fairchild.
And how are you currently employed?
I work for Family Life Counseling in Mansfield, Ohio.
Okay, what is Family Life Counseling?
It's a counseling agency. I operate as a case manager.
And was there a time when you worked for the Salvation Army in Ashland?
Yes.
And what did you do for the Salvation Army?
The last job I had there was as social service coordinator.
And how long did you work there?
In total, 11 years.
And how long were you the social service coordinator?
Approximately 5.
Okay. And when did you leave the employee of the Salvation Army?
January of 2017.
And what does the social service coordinator do?
I acted as a supervisor over a social service department. So I oversaw our other staff members, the food pantry. I did intake and case management for the Access program, which is a homeless program. I also assessed when individuals were homeless, they would come to us to see what housing options were available to them. So I would assess that and direct them from there, whether it be the Access program or short-term hotel or housing relationships as far as finding rentals.
And are there other services that the Salvation Army is providing through social services?
Yes, they have a hot meal and food pantry.
And you were the coordinator over all of those programs?
Ultimately, yes.
What's your educational background?
I have an associate's degree in human services.
And was there a time when you met a gentleman by the name of Shawn Grate?
Yes.
And do you recall when you first met Shawn Grate?
Yes.
When was it?
I believe it's dated on the intake sheet, July 22nd. July 22nd, I think, is when I first met him, and then the intake sheet is dated for July 25th.
Okay, and what was the circumstance that brought you into his contact on the 22nd?
He had said that he had come from Mansfield and that he was staying in Ashland and that he didn't really want to stay where he was, but that he was okay for the weekend, so he agreed to come meet with me on Monday. And I believe he had said that he had found somewhere to stay with a friend of his mother's, and so we didn't really provide any other services.
Okay, and what year would this be?
2016?
So August 22nd of 2016?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, August.
And I'm sorry, July.
Yeah, July.
All right.
Whatever's dated there on the intake sheet.
Right. So you didn't fill out an intake sheet at that time?
No, my mother-in-law had to go to work, and so I was rushing out. I believe I met him in the lobby, and he said he was okay for the weekend. I said, so we'll meet again on Monday.
Okay. And did you then meet on Monday?
Yes.
And what did you do on Monday?
Learn more about his situation, what his needs were. Learned that he had found a place to stay, and then I had just explained the other services that we had at the Croc Center, the hot meal, and we have a shower that was open to use for the public.
Okay. The Sheriff Defense Counsel states Exhibit 348, 349. Show you what we marked for purposes of identification as State Exhibit 348. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
What is that?
that is our agency intake sheet.
Now, what is the agency intake sheet?
When somebody is applying for services, we have them fill out an intake sheet that asks information, the year of their birth, their address, their income, their expenses, and it has a release of information at the bottom. It also asks what other services in the community you've used.
And then it's signed and dated?
Yes,
By whom?
Shawn signed and dated it.
And that was in your presence?
Yes.
And what services was he looking for?
I could read the notes. It says here that he was here for help with shelter. He was living in Mansfield, but he said his girlfriend was abusive and he left her, and then he started staying with an acquaintance he had met through his mother. He said he had an interview the following day at Save-A-Lot, so I gave him a list of landlords and a slip for pantry for residency proof. So if somebody doesn't have proof of residency, then I write a note saying that we'll serve them regardless for the food pantry, and then they'll serve them. And then I advised him to contact me when he's ready for an app fee or an application fee. So if he got his job at Save-A-Lot and then was looking for rental assistance, we would have been able to provide him with an application fee.
And did you see him again in follow-up to this application?
Yes, it says here on the 27th, 2 days later, that he had gotten the job at Save-A-Lot, and then he starts the next morning, and he asked me for help setting up a phone he had. And so we had called Straight Talk together, and we were told that the phone card was not compatible. So he said he was going to try to return the phone, or the card, excuse me, and there really wasn't any one-on-one after the fact.
Okay. With respect to that form, is that a form that was used by you as you conducted the regular business activities at the Salvation Army?
Yes.
And is it a form that was completed in part by yourself
Yes.
and signed in your presence by Shawn Grate?
Yes.
And then once this form is signed and completed, is it then kept with the records of the regularly conducted business of the Salvation Army?
Yes.
And does this appear to be a true and accurate copy of the form as you created it and saw it signed by Shawn Grate on July 25th, 2016?
Yes.
Now, following contact with Shawn Grate referenced this form and some services. Did you see him then at the Kroc Center?
Yes, frequently.
But you didn't have direct contact with him?
No.
Okay.
It was mostly just in passing, maybe a hello, how are you, every now and then.
And did you know an Elizabeth Griffith?
Yes. Yes.
And how did you know Elizabeth?
Elizabeth frequented the community meal.
And would you have contact with her?
Yes, I've talked with Elizabeth many different times.
How about a Lori Spillick?
Yes.
And how did you know Lori Spillick?
She had always just been a part of the Salvation Army family. She had volunteered at different times and had frequently attended the community meal since I had begun with Salvation Army in 2005.
And did you have occasion at any point in time to see 2 or 3 of those individuals together?
Mostly, I'd seen Shawn and Lori together just walking around town as I live in Ashland.
Okay. So you know them and you'd spot them as you went around town?
As we all do in small communities.
Sure. Now, your duties as the social services coordinator also put you in charge of the food pantry?
We had a supervisor, but I was her supervisor.
Okay. And what is the food pantry at the Salvation Army?
It's your traditional sense of a food pantry. We receive food from Cleveland Food Bank. It's a self-choice pantry, so individuals choose what they can use. Folks can come. We had different things set up at different times, so at first, people can come as often as they needed, but again, to be too much, and I think when I had left, we were up to 2 times a month individuals can come.
And is there also lunch provided by the Salvation Army?
Yes.
How does that work?
It's the same idea. We don't need an intake or anything for that. If individuals just want to come in and have lunch, there's no income guidelines. They just sign the sheet, so we know how many we served that day, and then they have lunch.
And when is lunch offered?
I believe lunch was offered at 11:45, Monday through Friday.
Okay. And when did lunch stop?
12:15, 12:30, or until it was done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said there's a sign-in sheet? Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of the sign-in sheet?
If I recall, it was mostly just to track how many individuals we served.
Okay. And what information is collected on the sign-in sheet?
It usually sat at the front desk, and I didn't have much to do with it, but I believe it just had the name and the date.
Okay. And then after each lunch, was the sign-in sheet collected?
Yes.
And then was it kept?
Yes.
Show you what we've marked as State's Exhibit 349.
Yep.
And do you recognize what that stack of documents is?
Yes.
What is it?
This is our sign-in sheet for lunch.
Okay, if you look at that,
Oh, I'm sorry. This is actually just a general sign-in sheet. So anybody who would come into the building would sign this. It wasn't just for lunch.
okay. So that way you see who's coming in and out of the building?
It's safety reasons. If there was a fire or something like that, we can make sure everybody's accounted for. I believe that was the main reason why we started this, thinking
Okay.
back to it now.
And then those documents then are kept by the Salvation Army?
Yes.
With all the other records of Salvation Army business?
Yes.
And as the coordinator for social services, you have access to these documents?
If I needed them, yes, but it wasn't kept with my files.
Okay, but you have access to those, it's under...
Yep.
Would you look at the first document there and tell us what date on that sign-in sheet is?
May 31st, 2016.
And if you would, take a look at the last sheet and tell us what the last date is.
Friday, September 9th, 2016.
Okay. So what does that collection of documents appear to cover?
It covers spring to summer, the individuals that had come into the Croc Center.
Okay. And that particular packet there, that's kept in the regular course of Salvation Army business?
Yes,
And it's created for the business purposes of the Salvation Army?
yes.
And it's kept with the regular recorded activity of the Salvation Army?
I believe so, yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Cross-examine.
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused.
State will call Jimmy Sue. Jimmy Sue.
Jimmy Sue. solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you should answer your God?
Yes.
Okay, have a seat and speak into the microphone. That's mine, please.
Oh, will do.
Good morning, sir.
How do you do?
All right. What's your name?
Jimmy Sue.
And spell your last name for the court reporter, please.
HSU.
Okay. And how are you employed?
I am employed at how? My partner and I, we open dental practices, and so yeah, under a dental practice.
Okay. Now, speak up real loud so everybody in the courtroom can hear you, okay?
Okay, will do.
What is your dental practice called?
Alpha Dental?
And do you have a particular title?
I do. It's the director.
Okay, so you are the director for Alpha Dental.
Correct.
And this is a series of dental clinics?
It is. We're a group dentistry.
Okay, and how many locations do you have?
We actively have 6.
All right. And what do you do as the director?
I basically go around auditing all of the offices. I operate, do marketing. I also oversee all the charts and make sure that the clinical directors, which are the doctors, are actually properly entering notes and making sure that whatever they do enter in is proper and valid legally as well.
Okay. And how are patient records kept?
We are all digital office, and we also have, before 2016, it was all paper charts, but after 2016, we digitalized everything. So they are all in the computer, basically on servers.
Okay. Does that include the pre-2006 charts?
That's correct.
Okay.
16, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
So what sort of information is kept within a particular patient's records?
Any kind of x-rays, doctor's notes, lab slips, ledgers, and any kind of pre-authorizations, insurances, and their ID, and any photos we have of them.
Okay. When you say ID, what do you mean?
I mean their state ID, anything government issued.
And why do you keep that information?
So we can properly, to explain it, it's like when someone comes with an insurance card, the insurance card doesn't have their photo ID on it, so then in order for us to know that it's actually them using the insurance, we look at their photo ID so we don't get in trouble either.
And so you collect that sort of information to conduct the regular business of Alpha Dental?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you oversee and have access to those records?
Correct.
I'm going to show State's Exhibit 350 and 351, Defense Counsel. I'll show you what we've marked as State's Exhibit 350.
Okay.
Can you tell us what that is?
That's a driver's license. Oh, well, actually, sorry, identification card for this particular person. State government issued.
And is that the sort of ID that would be kept in an individual's file?
Yes.
Was there an Elizabeth Griffith that was a patient or client of Alpha Dental in Ashland?
Yes.
Where's the Ashland location?
It's on 1445 Claremont Avenue in Ashland.
And she was a patient?
She was a patient, yes.
So as a patient, you would have collected her ID?
Yes, correct.
And is State's Exhibit 350, in fact, a copy of the ID on file in Alpha Dental's record?
Yes, it is.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 351. Can you identify that set of documents?
And that is a panoramic x-ray of Elizabeth Griffin.
What part of Elizabeth Griffin?
It's for the entire panoramic view of the mouth. Includes the jawline and up to the sinus cavity, including all of the dentition.
And are those, was that also a record held by Alpha Dental?
Yes, we hold this digitally as well.
Okay. Do you have the ability then to transmit those records digitally?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and were you aware that at some point in 2016, September of 2016, the Ashland Police Department needed Elizabeth Griffith's dental records?
Yes.
And those dental records, were they transmitted then to the Ashland Police Department?
Yes, it was.
Would that have been in paper or electronic?
I brought both.
Okay.
We could provide it both.
So, in States Exhibits 350 and 351, those are records of Alpha Dental,
Yes, they are.
and they were made in the regular course of Alpha Dental's business,
Yes, they were.
and they were held pursuant to the records policy of Alpha Dental.
Yes, they were.
And are they true and accurate copies of documents within Alpha Dental's records?
Yes, they were. Are.
They would still be there.
Yes, yeah, they still are.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Cross-examine.
No questions, Judge, thank you.
Thank you. Your excuse, sir.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Gary Alden.
Sir, would you turn and raise your right? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about in this matter should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Would you tell us your name, please?
Yes, my name is Gary Alting.
And how are you employed?
I work for the City of Ashland, Ohio, the Division of Police.
And how long have you been with the Division of Police?
Next month will be 23 years.
And what are your current duties with the Division of Police?
I'm a lieutenant. I'm assigned to our detective division, where I supervise that unit.
And when did you become the lieutenant and supervisor of the Detective Bureau?
Last year, February of 2017.
And who did you take over for?
At the time, it was a vacant spot. I took over for Captain Lay, who returned to his position in the administrative offices.
Okay, so Captain Lay would have been in charge of that bureau in September of 2016?
That is correct.
And were you in the Detective Bureau at that time?
I was.
What was your role?
I was a sergeant, first-line supervisor, and I was a direct report to Captain Lay.
And do you recall the days leading up to September 13th, 2016?
I do.
And were you involved at all in investigating a missing persons report, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Griffith?
Yes, I believe it was Friday of that week. I accompanied Captain Lay on a couple of follow-ups that he made, one in the city and one out in the county.
Okay. And did that involve going to Elizabeth Griffith's apartment?
No, I did not accompany him to that
Okay, so you
location.
didn't go along on that,
That's correct.
all right? And was the police department at that time actively engaged in looking for Elizabeth Griffith?
Yes,
So there were multiple members of your department trying to follow up on that missing persons report.
That is correct.
And then at some point, following the Friday that you were with Captain Lay looking for Elizabeth Griffith, did you become aware of a missing person by the name of Stacey Stanley?
I did.
And when were you made aware of that situation?
I had heard about it, I believe, over the weekend. I do know that by Monday, I know that our agency was investigating this missing persons with, it was reported by, I believe, the Huron County Sheriff's Office. I actually was called out that weekend on a death investigation, and I was actually tied up with that Sunday and Monday.
Okay, so that was another matter separate completely from this.
It was. That's what I was concentrating on for those 2 days.
And then do you recall the morning of September 13th?
I do.
And what happened then?
I was notified by Captain Lay that it would have been about 7:45, 7:44 in the morning, that myself and the other 2 detectives in the unit needed to respond right away to the station.
And what was happening when you arrived on station?
What I knew was that there was a abduction and rape investigation that was going on at a residence on Covert Court. A suspect was being held, and the victim was being brought to the station, and that's all I had initially when I came in.
Okay, and we've had prior testimony that Captain Lay and Detective Major were engaged in interviewing both victim and suspect that day.
Correct.
And Detective Evans was at the scene on Covert Court
Yes.
for the better part of the day.
Yes.
What was your role, if any, initially with respect to Covert Court?
I made contact with 2 witnesses that, when sharing information with the other investigators, one was the clerk who worked at the BP station where one of the victims, Stacey Stanley Hicks, had been last seen.
Okay.
And there was also, I found out there was a family friend identified as Wayne Bright who had come up to assist her with changing a tire that had gone flat, and I sought him out to speak with him.
Okay. So let's start with the BP. Which location, which BP station?
Main Street and Union Street, City of Ashland.
And you made contact with the clerk there?
I did. Not at that location, at a residence where he was living at the time out on 42 North.
Okay. Nathaniel Keck?
That is correct.
All right. So you spoke to Nathaniel Keck. Did you make an effort to retrieve surveillance video from the BP at Main and Union?
I was unable to because it was not operating, so we weren't able to get any video from there.
All right. And then you spoke to Mr. Bright?
I did, later that afternoon.
Okay. And I take it you interviewed Mr. Bright?
I did.
Did you also take a look at his cell phone?
I did.
And did you take a picture of Wayne Bright's cell phone?
I did.
What was your purpose in taking that picture?
I wanted to document an incoming call that he had got from Stacey. He explained to me that she had called him so he could have her updated number on his phone.
I'll show you Stacey Exhibit 211. Can you identify that photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph that I took of Wayne Bright's call history on his flip phone. It's marked State's Exhibit 211.
Okay. Now, at some point, did you speak with a Corey Stanley?
I did.
And who is Corey Stanley?
He is Stacey Stanley Hicks' son.
And we've had prior testimony here that he had phone contact as well with Stacey
Yes, he did.
on that particular evening. Did you examine his telephone?
I did, that same evening, September 13th.
And what'd you do reference his phone?
I took photographs to document call history back and forth, or also text messages back and forth between him and his mother's phone.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 206. Can you identify that photograph?
I can. This is a photograph that I took of Corey's phone, marked State's Exhibit 206, and it is a text message exchange between him and his mother that evening. Or, I'm sorry, the evening of the 8th of September.
And again, what was your purpose in photographing that phone?
I wanted to document this exchange of text messages.
And are both those exhibits fair and accurate copies of the phone as you viewed them?
Yes, they are. Or yes, this is, and yes, that is also.
At some point, did you travel to a location known as the Kroc Center?
I did.
And what was your purpose in going there?
And again, in the course of the investigation, we learned that the defendant and two of the victims in this investigation frequented there around the same time of day. I also learned that the defendant had signed in there and registered for services that the Kroc Center provided back in July of 2016. So I went there to get those records, and I did have an opportunity to speak with Sarah Fairchild as well, who's a social worker there.
Okay. And was the Kroc Center able to provide you the records that you were looking for?
Yes, they did.
State's Exhibit 348.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is?
I can. State's Exhibit 348 is a Salvation Army Kroc Center application, if you will. It's filled out by Shawn Grate. Looks like on the 8th, no, that's, on the 25th of July, 2016. And attached are notes and an intake sheet.
All right. And that's the document you collected off the Kroc Center, part of the investigation?
That is correct.
Okay. The date, July 25th, 2016. Throughout the course of the Ashland Police Department's investigation into these matters, the whereabouts, movements of Shawn Grate, is there an earlier documented date to find him in Ashland than July 25th?
No, I do have a statement from a previous witness that he came in on the 22nd, but Ms. Fairchild wasn't able to meet with him because of prior engagement, so she told him to come back.
And
So,
in fact, Ms. Fairchild just testified in the same.
okay,
So in that July 22 to 25 range,
that is correct.
and throughout your interviews with various subjects relating to this, that's the earliest you put him in the city of Ashland?
That is correct.
State's Exhibit 349. You recognize that collection of documents?
I do.
What is that?
This is a collection of, it's a copy of the sign-in sheets from the Ashland Kroc Center that I collected. It begins, it's actually marked State's Exhibit 349. It begins May 31st, 2016, which is a Tuesday, and the last one is the week beginning September 6th, all of 2016.
And as your part in this investigation, did you review those documents?
I did.
And at the time you began collecting those documents and reviewing them, were you aware that there were 3 victims in the city of Ashland? Or 2 victims, I'm sorry? No, I'm sorry.
There would have been 3, yeah, and that's correct. I did know that by this time.
But 2 that would have frequented the Croc Center?
That is correct.
Who would that be?
That would be Elizabeth Griffith and victim Lori Spillick.
Okay. And what were you reviewing those records for?
I wanted to see any correlation or connection from when they signed in and to see any times when both those 2 and even the suspect in this case, Grate, would have signed in.
Okay. And did you find their names within those records?
I did.
What can you tell us about, let's say, Elizabeth Griffith's habits reference the Croc Center?
She would come in around lunchtime. For example, beginning the week starting Tuesday the 31st, they were closed for Memorial Day. She and Lori both came in. I marked here, I highlighted them on the originals that I got. Like Elizabeth came in at 10:30, for example, that day. And as you go through that week, she comes in on the 2nd, the 6th. I'm sorry, not Elizabeth. She came in on the 9th. So she was periodically coming in, maybe once or twice a week for lunch.
And were you able to find a reference to Shawn Grate within those documents?
I did.
When
Yes.
is the first reference to Shawn Grate?
The first sign-in, if I can turn to it here. The first sign-in I found of him was actually the 27th of July, and that would have been the second time that he met with Sarah Fairchild, and I highlighted it on this sheet.
Okay, and is there a name that is of interest to us in the same range on the sign-in sheet?
Yep, Lori signed in above him. They both signed in at 11:26 a.m., and the timeout was 12:10 p.m.
And the sign-out time was the same for both of them?
That is correct.
And prior to that, within the records, the 2 of them don't appear together?
No, not that I was able to find.
And then going forward in time, were there more instances where those 2 names appear next to each other?
Yes.
How frequently?
Well, I can tell you again on the 29th, I'm sorry, the 28th, July 28th, 2016. They were there the same day on the 2nd of August, however, different times. We believe, from what I could tell, it was the 3rd together, up to the 11th. So again, frequency of every couple of days he would show up. And there were days where he and Lori were there together.
But not every day?
No.
Now, did you also, throughout the course of the investigation, or during the course of the investigation, have occasion to travel to Cuyahoga County Coroner's Office and the VCI Ridgefield?
I did.
When was that? If you recall.
I believe it was in October. I can't give you the exact date without notes. I do know that I went there with Captain Lay and Beth Jackenheimer from the coroner's office.
Okay, and what was your purpose in making that trip?
We collected biological samples and some evidence from Cuyahoga County, and some of it was prearranged to transfer it to the BCI at Richfield, to that lab. And then from there, we also, I believe, transferred some evidence from BCI back to Ashland.
Okay. At a later date?
I believe so.
Okay. And the transfer back, show you here, State's Exhibit 120.
Okay.
Recognize what that is?
I do.
What is it?
This is an Ashland Police Division evidence log, marked State's Exhibit 120. It's a copy. And it is documenting items that were found at the scene, and it shows the chain of custody for these items.
Okay. And does it document your handling of certain items of evidence?
Yes.
And what items of evidence did you handle?
I transferred, I'm going to have to refer to this. Okay, here we go. Item number 11 was a bag containing unknown property found at the scene. Anyway, it shows me with Lay returning this stuff, picking it up at, taking it from evidence and taking it to BCI Richfield on the 30th. I picked up another item on the 39th, and I actually relinquished it to the FBI for an exam to a local agent. It shows me logging that back into evidence on November 22nd.
Okay, which item was that?
It's item 39 it shows on here, which would have been a paper bag containing VHS camera.
At some point, did you return to BCI and collect an item of evidence?
I would have, yes.
What was that?
On this sheet, I got it right here. Let me look. There's several items. I'm showing, I'd have to refer to this. There's several items on here.
I'm going to show you what we marked as State's Exhibit 122.
Okay.
122 is item 12.
It's right here.
BCI now.
I've got it right here, item 12.
What did you do with Exhibit 122?
I picked that up at BCI Richfield on the 6th of January of 2017 and transported it back to the police department where it was secured in evidence at that same day, the 6th, at 1:20 p.m.
Okay, and there's Exhibit 122 appeared to be in substantially similar condition as to when you brought it back from BCI.
It does.
All right, I'll show you what we marked as State's Exhibit 199. What is 199?
This is an Ashland Police Division evidence log. It is a copy of an evidence log filled out by Officer Newman. And the item in particular is a silver quickset key.
Now, does it document your handling of the silver quickset key?
It does.
I'll show you what we marked as Stacey Exhibit 198. Recognize that item?
I do.
What is that?
Item 198 is a paper bag, an evidence bag. It says containing the silver quickset key.
And what did you do with the silver quickset key?
On the 21st of October of 2016, I relinquished this to Ed Staley, as an agent with BCI, and I returned it to the Sallyport evidence cage same day, the 21st, at 2:15 p.m.
And does State's Exhibit 198 appear to be in substantially similar condition as when you had custody and control of it?
Yes, it does.
You can tell us what State's Exhibit 201 is, please?
Okay, 201 is a photocopy of an Ashland Police Division evidence log, again filled out by Officer Newman. It reads a quick, item number 1, quick set lock from 242 Matthews Avenue, apartment L.
And does it demonstrate your handling of that item of evidence?
It does. It shows that on the 21st of October of 2016, again at 2:05 p.m., I relinquished this to Agent Ed Staley of BCI, and then I returned it to evidence from him at 2:15 p.m. that day.
And you recognize State's Exhibit 200?
I do.
What is State's 200?
This is the evidence bag that it reads containing the quickset lock, which matches what is on this evidence sheet.
And does State's Exhibit 200 appear to be in substantially similar condition as you had custody and control?
It does.
Show you State's Exhibit 274. Can you identify that?
This is a copy of an Ashland Police Division evidence log. It was filled out by Officer Eggerman, and it shows 7 items of evidence that he recovered.
And does it include a sexual assault kit?
It does. It would be item number 7 on this sheet.
And item number 7 contained on the sheet, does that form demonstrate your handling of that item of evidence itself?
It does. It shows, it shows that I was with Lay when we retrieved it from, when we transferred it to BCI Richfield, again on the 30th of September of 2016. And then it shows that I picked it up at BCI Richfield on the 6th of January 2017, and then I returned it to the Sallyport evidence cage where it was secured.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 257. Do you recognize that exhibit?
I do. This 257 is a Ohio Department of Health sexual assault evidence collection kit. And this would be the item marked number 7 that was retrieved by Eggerman.
Okay. And that is the same sexual assault kit then that you picked up at BCI and transferred to Sallyport evidence cage?
It is.
And does it appear to be in substantially similar conditions to when it was in your custody?
It does.
At some point during the course of the investigation, did you travel to a business location known as Nails 2?
I did.
For what purpose?
Information received during the investigation indicated that victim Stacey Stanley Hicks had gone there to get her nails done, her fingernails done, before the flat tire.
And did you make contact with anybody there?
I did.
Who was that?
I believe he's the owner, but he's the manager. He's referred to as Sonny.
Okay. And is there surveillance? We've had prior testimony that there's a surveillance system in Nails 2.
There is.
Did you view any surveillance video at that time?
I did. I had to return because he wasn't familiar with the system. He had to contact somebody to get into it with a PIN number. So I went back days later and was able to view it with him.
Okay. And did you do anything to memorialize that video?
I did. I took some stills of it.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 215.
Okay.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, it is a photograph documenting the time that Miss Hicks Stanley is leaving the business following her appointment.
And that's a photograph that you took?
It is.
It's a fair and accurate representation of the surveillance monitor, as you saw it?
It is, yes.
Show defense counsel State's Exhibit 352, 353, 354, and 355, and 356. Lieutenant, I'll show you what we marked as State's Exhibit 352. Tell us what it is.
Yes. State's Exhibit 352 is a search warrant that I have prepared for the residence at Covert Court. This includes the affidavit, the actual search warrant, and the return and receipt.
And what day did you draft that search warrant?
Would have been on the 16th of September, 2016.
Okay, and what was your purpose in seeking a search warrant for that residence?
Information in the investigation. Through the course of the investigation, it was learned that the victim, Stacey Stanley Hicks, had deployed some pepper spray and sprayed it at the assailant. And this was learned afterwards. While examining scene photographs, a pink canister of Mace defense spray was found next to her body. That was not initially collected, so I filled out a search warrant in order to go back to get that and a couple of other items that were relayed to me by Detective Major.
And the, who went with you to execute that search warrant?
Special Agent Larry Hootman from Ohio BCI. He went into the home with me, and Detective Major showed up, and she actually wrote on some of the receipts. She was outside the residence waiting for me to bring the stuff out.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 352, did you cause that affidavit then to be reviewed and the warrant signed by a competent judicial authority?
I did.
Who was that?
Attorney Tom Budd, he was the acting municipal court judge that day.
Okay. And is State's Exhibit 352 a fair and accurate copy of the search warrant affidavit and related materials?
It is.
And when you arrived at Covert Court to execute that search warrant, was the house secured in any way?
It was.
How so?
It was bolted, it closed with the hardware that was installed, screws, et cetera, to keep it secure that way. And we also had tape across it that was initialed when it was sealed up on the first night, that had not been tampered with yet.
Okay, and upon inspection, everything appeared secure?
It did.
And are you confident that the scene had not been tampered with in any way?
Yes, I am.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 15. Tell us what that is.
Yes, this is a evidence bag that contains a pig can of Mace brand spray, and it was found at the basement of 363 Covert Court here in the city of Ashland. And it was prepared by me.
And State's Exhibit 355 is what?
355 is a return and receipt that I completed that day. Again, Detective Major had filled out a couple of the items on here, but it shows that what was seized was a can of Mace spray. Item number 2 was multiple VHS tapes. We counted up to be 51 and 1 DVD. And then we also collected an additional 10 VHS tapes from the basement. That was item 3.
And that item bears your signature?
It does.
And what does your signature indicate?
It indicates that I received the items.
And is State's Exhibit 355 a true and accurate copy of this search warrant return?
It is.
State's Exhibit 356, what is that?
This 356 is a copy of an Ashland Police Division evidence log that I filled out, and it details items of evidence that I had collected throughout this investigation.
And does it include item State's Exhibit 15, the can of Mace?
It does. It shows it as item 4 on the sheet.
Okay, and your it demonstrates your handling of that particular item of evidence?
It does.
And what did you do with that particular evidence?
After seizing it at the scene, I secured it in the Sallyport evidence cage on the 16th, the same day of September 2016, at 3:30 in the afternoon.
And is 356 a true and accurate copy of the Ashland Police Department evidence log relating to State's Exhibit 15?
It is.
State's Exhibit 353.
Okay.
Your Honor, may we publish State's Exhibit 353?
Any objection?
No, Judge.
What is State's Exhibit 353?
States 353 is a photograph of the rear entrance to the residence on Covert Court 363, I believe.
Okay. And when you say it was secured by hardware, can we see the, I guess, means used to secure the residence in this photograph?
You can, if you look to the right, there is a plywood board that had been affixed there to board it up.
And it was affixed when you arrived to execute your warrant?
Yes, staff from the Pump House Ministries had equipment to get that off of there for me, and they resecured it while I was still there when I was done.
Okay, and you observed them resecure it when you were done?
I did.
State's Exhibit 354. May we publish 354, Your Honor?
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
Thank you. You may.
And what is State's Exhibit 354?
354 is a photograph of the same door depicted in the previous photograph. It is a close-up of where I affixed tape, and I initialed on that tape on the 16th of September of 2016 at 2:27 p.m.
And is that when you were done executing your search warrant?
It was,
And then the door was covered back up with the... All right.
correct.
Are both those exhibits, 353 and 354, are they fair and accurate depictions of the scene as you observed it on September 16th,
They are.
2016?
Yes, they are.
On September 13th, or soon thereafter, did you meet with members of the Stanley family? Reference the identification of Stacey Hicks?
I did. I believe it was late, still on the 13th. But yes, I did.
And did you prepare a photograph for presentation to family members?
I did.
Show you State's Exhibit 210. Can you identify that?
I can. This is a photograph that I presented to members of the family. This photograph depicts a tattoo from the left arm of who is identified as Stacey Stanley Hicks. I wanted to present this to the family for positive identification.
If we may publish this photo, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge. I
Thank
think
you.
it was well observed.
It was.
Now, did you have to alter this, did you alter this photo in any way prior to, or an original photo?
I did.
In some way?
The upper right corner of that photograph, actually what's being depicted here, it would be the lower right corner. It showed some decaying flesh. I didn't feel I felt that would be unsettling to the family, so I sliced that off of there.
So that they wouldn't have to view that?
Correct.
And in your presence, you showed this photograph to them?
I did.
And were they able to identify it?
Yes, they were.
Who did they identify this individual?
As Stacey Stanley Hicks.
And it states Exhibit 210, a fair and accurate depiction of the photograph that you showed the family for purposes of identifying the body of Stacey Hicks?
It is.
Lieutenant, Prior to the, or at some point at the beginning of this trial, did you have occasion to bring items of evidence from the Ashland Police Department to the Ashland County Court of Common Pleas?
I did.
And what did you do with the items of evidence that you brought from the Ashland Police Department?
I relinquished them to Bailiff Shipper.
Okay. And that would be all items of physical evidence?
All items of physical evidence from my agency. I know that Lieutenant Smart from the Sheriff's Department had an item, and I believe the title would be Ranger Bittinger from Charles Mill from the Muskingum Watershed. He also had some items.
And as you brought those items to court, they were all unaltered, and you brought them directly from the Ashland Police Department?
I did.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Nothing further.
Cross-examine, Mr. Whitney?
No, thank you, Judge, no question.
Okay, thank you. You're excused, Lieutenant.
Officer Lee Egerman.
If anybody needs to stand up and stretch, you're welcome to do so. We'll be taking a break after this witness.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter?
Could you tell us your name, please?
Officer Lee Egerman,
And how are you employed?
the Ashland Police Division.
And how long have you been with the police division?
6.5 years.
And what do you do for the police division?
I'm on road patrol.
And what sorts of things does road patrol do?
Respond to calls for service, traffic, and law enforcement.
And were you working on September 13th, 2016?
I was.
And did you have occasion to travel to UH Samaritan Hospital?
I did.
For what purpose?
To pick up evidence.
And what was that evidence?
It was a rape kit.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 257. Yes, can you identify that item?
Yes, this is the rape kit that I picked up.
And how do you know that's the rape kit you picked up?
From my signature here on the chain of custody portion.
Okay, show you State's Exhibit 274. What is 274?
This is the Ashland Police Department evidence log
For what item?
for the rape kit.
Okay, and what does it demonstrate?
That I picked up the rape kit from the hospital and transported to an evidence locker.
And who did you get it from at the hospital?
Lisa O'Reilly
And what time did you receive that item?
at 23:49, so 11:49 p.m.
And does State's Exhibit 274 appear to be a true and accurate copy of the Ashland Police Department evidence log?
Yes, it is.
And is State's Exhibit 257 in substantially similar condition as to when you received it on September 13, 2016?
Yes, it is.
And you placed that particular item of evidence where?
In an evidence locker at the police department.
That's a secure location?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Cross?
No question, Judge, thank you.
Okay, thank you, officer. You're excused.
Thank you.
Now 10:21 on the courtroom clock. We're going to take a morning recess at this time. Again, ladies and gentlemen, don't discuss this case among yourselves. Don't let anybody discuss with you. Don't draw any conclusions or form any opinions. Comply with the court's prior order admonitions. Thank you. Court's in recess.